All right, folks, before we jump in, today's conversation with Dave is the real deal. Dave's got a colorful vocabulary, and normally I'd bleep a few things, but we'd be here all week. So this one's staying mostly unfiltered, and you'll hear the actual rhythm of the conversation the way it happened. So if you've got little ears in the room, now's the time to toss in some headphones or save this episode for later. Now, let's get into it. Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 508. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the internationally acclaimed and celebrated comic book writer and artist, Dave Baker. Dave.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is exciting stuff. So you were on the first time you came on when you were talking about Everyone is Tulip, which was a great conversation, and I loved reading that graphic novel. And then you were on again to talk about your Action Hospital series and the F Off Squad. I remember we talked a little bit about that. And now you're here to talk a little bit about your newest outing. Oh, you came here to talk about Morhawk?
Oh yeah, I think it was Mary Tyler Moore. Yeah.
Yes, you were on there for that too. We talked about that as well. And so you're here to talk a little bit about one of your newest endeavors, which is, and I'm pulling it up because I had it up on my show notes. It was, and all right, this is the part I get to edit on my side.
Are you looking for pumpkin heads? Is that what you're trying to
That's
grab?
what it was, yeah. So you're here to talk about Pumpkin Heads, which is coming out as of this recording in a few weeks.
Yeah, it'll be out April 7th in bookstores, April 8th in comic book stores. Pumpkin Heads is published by Top Shelf Comics, which is a subsidiary of IDW. The book is co-created by me and the artist Nicole Goux. And the project is like a coming-of-age romance comic set in the world of punk bands and DIY musicians in Los Angeles. We follow a young girl who drops out of art school after being broken up with by her girlfriend, moves into a shitty punk flophouse with a bunch of guys she knew in high school, only to discover, oh man, I may have made a crucial mistake. I may have started sleeping with the bassist in this band, and now he wants me to front the band, and now I'm making more mistakes. What am I doing with my life? I don't know how to pay bills. This is miserable. It's an uplifting tale. It sounds like it's not, but it actually is. It's a book that's all about, like, trying to thread the needle of being a creative person in an expensive city, and also trying to mature past
Right.
that juncture in between young adulthood and adulthood.
And so when did like Pumpkin Heads kind of like first click for you that this was going to be your next book?
I've been working on it for a while now. Nicole and I kind of always have like a running tab of like weird projects that we want to do. And she said to me once, like, hey, I kind of want to do a book that's like, it's like about shitty punk kids that go to zine fests and stuff. And they would play in a horror punk band and they would wear pumpkin masks. And I was like, oh, well, what would it be called? And she said, Pumpkin Heads, because it's like a pun, like punk, but also pumpkin. And I was like, oh, I think there's something there, because we're both part of like the DIY comic scene here in Los Angeles. And our first book, Fuck Off Squad, was put out by Silver Sprocket, which is a former punk record label that became a publisher. And we just have a lot of friends in that world, and we're both part of that world to varying degrees. And we're always kind of like looking for weird, interesting places to put coming of age stories, because that's kind of the thing that both of us are interested in doing together. And I'm pretty excited with how the book came out. I think it
Right.
shaped up
And
pretty
so
fun.
Hannah Lipsky, that's the main character name, correct?
Yeah, Hannah basically is kind of an amalgam of Nicole, me, and a couple other people that we know who all went to art school. And Hannah's kind of this uh, she's kind of this trope that you see a lot in the DIY space of people who have kind of Don Quixote-esque sized visions for themselves and the logistical managerial skills of someone who works at Kmart. So they're really just they want the world, but man, they don't quite know how to put one foot in front of the other. And I think there's an interesting tension there between someone who makes these fictional worlds and also struggles to exist in our real world. Um, and so, yeah, she kind of became the North Star. The book's kind of an ensemble piece where there's a
Hmm.
cast of these 5 or 6 characters that all live in the house together and have varying different social dynamics with one another. But the POV character is Hannah. She's kind of
Okay.
the Wolverine in the first, 2000s X-Men movie where she kind of comes in and you get to meet all the characters through her, and she kind of provides the kind of plot conflict mechanism that gets everybody kind of spun up at one another.
Compared to some of your other stuff, what is it about having it based in, say, like a like punk for the story? What does that say that you would say like other genres or settings wouldn't? Like what am I trying? Like what
Yeah,
does
I know what you mean. Yeah, I did that like
what kind of
what is
freedoms does that give you? Yeah.
yeah, well, I think, in some of the books I've made that it's very similar spiritually. Like Fuck Off Squad is pretty it's a similar milieu, right? Like it's like shitty
Right.
punk kids and shitty skateboarders or like, you know, it's almost a Venn diagram. Or a perfect circle of a Venn diagram.
Mm.
And I think in the process of making Pumpkin Heads, there's music is all art aspires to music, right? Like that's a idiom and a colloquialism that has existed for a long time. And so I think in some ways music uh, serves as the ultimate metaphor for the creative expression because it's something that's both so immediate but travels so virulently. And I think that for our book, punk represents just like the independent spirit of attempting to make artwork and dedicating your life to doing something that like kind of probably has a pretty low chance of working out. And because punk is something that is so do it yourself and so ingrained in a kind of like fuck it, let's get a couple people together and bang on some drums and see what happens. Like I feel like there's a potential there that may not exist in other types of music as much.
Okay. And you as the ensemble cast, you put them all together. They all live together, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's part of that again comes from people we know or many people who are involved in the subcultures that we're involved in don't always have their shit together and they don't always have lots of money laying around and therefore roommates becomes a thing. Um, and I think that there's something that's fun and communal and important about that shared space and also something that stokes conflict and animus and frustration. And so what better place to set a story, right? Because you've got
Mm.
the shared love and familial kind of connection between these people, but you've also got, you know, they want to tear each other's faces off because somebody's stealing all the spoons or whatever.
And so having them all be together in living together, is that part of the plot, or did that kind of like take away from some of the main storylines that you were trying to create?
Well, I mean, the book, I mean, it's definitely the central location, right? Like the
Yeah.
house they all live in is the central location, but it's kind of an ensemble piece where, obviously we follow them as they play gigs and go on tour and also are working their shitty dead-end jobs. Like Hannah gets a job working at the Hollywood Palladium, which is definitely not based off of a summer where I was unemployed and had to work at the Hollywood Bowl. Um, 100% totally unrelated.
Mm.
And the various other characters is a character that works at a shitty, like, Payless style shoe store, or another one that kind of has a varying levels of stability at a like a tech startup, that like you're like, this job isn't going to be here in 5 minutes. Um, but yeah, I mean, the book has kind of an arc of like following this group of people as they are all attempting to ascend to a slightly less conflict laden emotional ecosystem, and yet
Huh.
will they ever really? Who the fuck knows?
So, which relationship kind of surprised you the most as you were writing your draft on this?
Well, Nicole and I did a lot of drafts on it. Basically, our process at this point is I write a first draft, then we get together and we talk about it, and we live read the script, and she'll read all the characters, and I'll read all the scene direction. And based off of that, we'll each have notes of like, oh, this scene doesn't work at all, or oh, you know what, that scene's pretty fun, or like, we got to move this back an issue. This doesn't work.
Huh.
And so, in that process, you find the dynamics of the various cast members and you kind of mind them. And for me, I mean, I think, Hannah and Jerry's relationship, Jerry being the bassist of the band, is really fun. Um, I also really like Morgan's relationship with Hannah, and Morgan, their relationship with Birdie, who's the drummer. There's varying means by which the book kind of examines what it means to be a creative person. Some people, especially the hierarchy of a band, is really interesting to me. I played in music when I was in high school, and I was in shitty bands, and I played classical music as well. So like I've had various versions of what it means to be in bands or play music or do creative acts together. And it's always really fun to find new and interesting and weird ways of exploring the collaborative process.
Mm,
And I think for Pumpkinheads, it is about the music, but it's also about like the various trials and tribulations that these people are going through.
right.
One of the characters has a brother with schizophrenia. One of the characters has um, a, a family that's kind of been torn apart by a strange religious background. There's been some deaths in various families that people are grappling with. Um, and so because of that, you're kind of always pushing and pulling against like this aspiration to be creative and the reality of what it means to be a person.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. And you love, Dave, writing like graphic novels. That seems to be your bread and butter. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Does it so what recommendation, because as I say, this is a full-length graphic novel. How did you pace it so it never drags?
That's an interesting question. I think Pumpkinhead specifically is structured. It's 9 chapters, and each chapter is a complete story. It's a self-contained, ostensibly single issue, but all in one volume. Because we weren't quite sure how it was going to be released, because it kind of went through couple different highs and lows of people being attached and unattached and whatnot. And so um, the first page of every issue, when we were reading this, or when we were creating this, we were reading a lot of like old school romance comics and old school like Silver Age stuff. And one of the things that they did in those comics a lot, which I really like, is like the first page of every story is a like half splash page that's almost like a trailer moment. It's like, two people embracing inside of a window and somebody watching them, and there's a title that's like, my girlfriend's leaving me, question mark. And like, that may or may not even be in the story, but it's this big like hook image that you stick everything on.
Right.
And so we did that. So every chapter has this kind of like hook moment, and then the second page of every chapter is 6 panels. The top 3 say that was then, this is now. So that was then are 3 panels that each are like previously on, like on a TV show, and then the this is now are like the 3 moments leading right up to where the story is starting. So
Right.
you're hopefully getting background on characters, and it's setting up, weird little, character dynamics that maybe we don't explore in the actual story itself, or something along those lines. And
No. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, and like, so that's one way, is like structuring it so that it's an overarching story where each episode or each issue or each chapter is its own completed thing, but that they build over the course of it.
Okay. Now, what would you say is what was the hardest scene that you had to land writing wise, and what was the hardest scene you had to land, say, like emotion wise?
I think writing wise, there's a big scene in chapter 9 that's kind of like the thesis of the whole book, where two characters are trying to set aside their differences and continue to make things together. And that scene went through like 7 different rewrites,
Mm,
seven different versions of what it could be. And the one in terms of the emotion, there's a scene in chapter 3, I think, where the Pumpkinheads are playing at a party, and Hannah runs into a girl that she had matched with um, on ostensibly Tinder. I forget I think we call it Swiper or something. Um, and Hannah had ghosted this girl. She was not very nice to her. And then they have like this, like, they're gonna rekindle their romance, and they make out drunkenly at this party. And then the girl goes, "You know what? Actually, you're kind of shitty, dude. Like, why did you?" I almost swore there, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. No swearing. Family friendly. Family friendly. Um, why did you ghost me? Like, that's so rude. And you know, that moment, it's a delicate balancing act of like, how do you show someone being indignant for being hurt, but also it's kind of funny, but also it still needs to be like, are they gonna still get it on? Like, you just had to do like 6 different things in that scene, and thankfully I think we landed it. I don't know, we'll see.
what would you say then? Like, what's one small scene that you're most proud of in that book?
There's a sequence in chapter 1 where Hannah is on the bus, and she's just gotten broken up with, and she's doing that thing that a lot of people do, where like they try and rush into a new relationship because they're like, somebody just distract me. And so she's on the bus, and she's like squeezed between these two guys, and she's trying to use her dating app to say that she wants to date both men and women, but the toggle like just keeps going back and forth to whichever one she selects. She can't select both. And the way Nicole drew that scene of like a phone diagram, and then like the multiple hands of her going back and forth and like trying to select, and like it's just so incredibly charming, and like it's a really impressive display of cartooning. And
Hmm.
that was one of those scenes where when I wrote the script, I was like, man, this is going to be great if she can do it, but we'll see. And then you get the page, and it's like 100 times better than what you had imagined, and you're like, this rules, this is so good.
So, what would you say, like, under the noise of the book? What would you say it's like, the theme, what the book is about?
I guess it's like, it's a rumination on like what do we define as survival? Like,
Mm,
is living a life absent from pain, absent from hunger, is that survival? Is survival being self-actualized enough to be able to make art? Is survival enough to um, just know that your family and friends are safe? Like, where do you define what is quote enough, and where do you define like these things are non-necessary and surplus? And I think that's something that every individual has to chart for themselves, and the various characters in the book arrive at different destinations as well, of like, I don't know how to make things and market things. Like, I know that
right,
sounds like a pedantic point, but like, how do you get the word out about the thing that you have made to try and make a living off of it? Or like,
right.
is living off of the art even the goal? Is having a day job, and then that is the goal, and the art is just like a vestigial part of your life that's off to the side? Everybody gets to decide that for themselves in the book, and I think
Right.
various people arrived at various different conclusions.
What did you learn about yourself then, Dave, with putting this one together?
It's interesting because I feel like the last book that we talked about, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, that was exceedingly difficult to make for me personally. Like, it took like 4.5 years, and it was me alone writing ostensibly a novel that I knew then I was going to also have to draw like 100 page of comics, and like maybe someone would put it out, maybe. Whereas now I feel like my profile has risen to the point that like if I finish a book, it will get published. It's just a matter of who, where, how, what the
Right.
money side of it looks like, what the rights side of it looks like. Like it will happen. But the interesting thing about this project was like I never quite thought that it wouldn't come out. It's just like it was an extreme test of endurance where like we started making the book, I pitched it around to everybody, it got rejected, and then we just decided we were going to make it. And then it got picked up by a publisher when we had a certain amount of it made, and then that publisher dropped it. And then it got picked up by a different publisher, and then we made a bunch of it, and then that publisher dropped it. And then, it was like that, it was that cycle of like it just was a almost mirroring thematically what the book is about. It was almost an endurance test of like, do you have the fortitude for the task at hand? And the task at hand is just like refuse to take no for an answer.
Right.
Like sometimes I feel like the lesson of the book is just like keep going, just keep going, even when it's like completely silly to do so, but you just have to. And like, what else am I gonna do? What am I gonna just take a nap? I'm not gonna do that.
And what would you say then too is like compared to your previous books like Tulip and Mary Tyler Moorhawk and then your Action Hospital, what did you take from those books that made it easier for you to do this one?
Well, I think part of it is that Nicole and I have such a refined collaboration at this point. Like, there's not a lot of
Mm,
ego. Like, we've been working together for a while, so it's really fun to work together, and also it's pretty brutal where one of us will just be like, "Man, that scene sucks," and then the other one goes, "What? It doesn't suck." And then the other one goes, "Yeah, these are the reasons it sucks. It sucks because this, and this." And then the other one goes, "Ah, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it does suck. We should probably take it out." Like at one point there was another character in the house who had a lot of like heavy lifting narratively to do, and we just couldn't get it to work. And I don't remember if it was her or if it was me, but at the end of the day, one of us was like, I think we just got to kill this character. I think we got to take this character out and give their business to somebody else. And like that sounds like it's not a big deal, but when you've done like 4 or 5 drafts on a 200-page graphic novel and now you need to rewrite every scene, giving a large amount of the narrative real estate from one person to another and
right.
making that work, it was kind of heartbreaking at that point where you were like, man, I know that this is the right thing to do, but I just really don't want to lay the existential metaphorical brick on brick on brick to make this happen.
Right.
Um, which I guess is another lesson in patience of just doing the thing.
Right. Now, so what would you say then, because you've been doing this for a long time, what would you say then, talking about just like the craft side of things, um, wh- how has, I would say, like the Internet of Things and just being able to like research, just out of something out of your pocket now is, um, how has the process of putting a book together like this been, say, streamlined with all the writing and art tools that are available to you now as compared to like even 5 years ago when we first started talking?
I mean, I guess to a certain degree, this book was drawn completely digitally. Nicole doesn't draw on paper anymore. She draws all her books digitally in Procreate. I color in Procreate. I still draw on paper and then I scan it in and I color digitally.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big change. I will say, like, I hate Illustrator, the program, the Adobe program Illustrator, and I lettered all of Action Hospital in Illustrator, and
Oh
I
wow.
suck at Illustrator, and I hate it, and it took me like 3 months to letter Action Hospital Volume 1 in Illustrator, and then I letter a whole issue of Halloween Boy in a day now because Procreate is just such an easier, streamlined. It's just like you drop some text in, you draw a little balloon, you're done. And
Yeah.
like it's such a better working experience for an artist, or at least for me. I don't want to say an artist. For me, it's a better working experience.
Yeah.
But I feel like the rapidly oncoming heat death of the universe that may or may not happen with artificial intelligence and the rapid expansion of digital technologies. Those two things go hand in hand, right? And I I feel like every other day I feel differently. Today
Right.
I'm feeling Today I'm feeling like AI is going to ruin everything and we're all going to end up dead in a ditch. But tomorrow I feel like, you know what? This is a sham. This is not going to work the way people want it to work.
Right.
Um, but I think regardless of which one of those pathways is accurate, I will say that I think that there will always be a intrinsically human desire to create artwork made by humans. Now, whether or not that happens at scale, whether or not large language models are widely embraced by the populace, no idea.
Hmm.
Uh, but I do think that at the end of the day, people want to have a connection. They want that cipher, that simulacrum of a buffer that they can develop a parasocial relationship with the person on the other side of the artwork through.
Right. Yeah, there's almost a sense of like uh uncanny valley aspect to like the AI art piece because there's no soul behind it.
Yeah. And even
Yeah.
when there is a soul, it's like an artificial soul, right? Like even when like this like up-resing thing that's been going around recently of like artificial intelligence augmented video games where it's like we're going to layer on like an AI generated layer of graphics over the graphics that are made and controlled by humans. And like everyone just has like porn face and everyone has like it's just like really hot people and you're like this guy's supposed to be like 90. Why is this guy like all of a sudden got a chiseled jaw? Like this is so weird.
Always consistently impressed by all of your stories and that you put out there. Now, I might have asked you last time because this is your third time on the show, which means you're now officially friend of the show. And does this have like do you have like a shared universe vibe with all of your stories?
Yeah, for all the stuff I make with Nicole, it's all one universe basically. The characters kind of show up in the backgrounds of stuff, but they don't really like show up. There's a couple characters that appear. The main things though are like there's a fake restaurant chain called Shiver Me Burgers, which is like a pirate themed burger joint that shows up in everything. There's a comic book character called the Lurker, who's kind of like the Shadow or the Phantom style pulp adventurer, and his background and kind of the people who've made the character show up, like in Pumpkinheads. Morgan goes to a cemetery. They go to Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and they visit the grave of like one of the main artists on the Lurker for their birthday, and that's based on a thing that I did where on my birthday a couple years ago I went to Hollywood Forever because Joe Shuster, the co-creator of Superman, is buried there. Um, he's in a room called the Columbarium, which is like a large cylindrical room that houses urns in these like little cubby holes that are probably like 10 inches by a foot, and you go in there and it's floor to ceiling, these little cubby holes, and there's all these people's ashes interned there, and there's people from all walks of life. There's children there. There's their families make these little like displays to them. Like there's a young man, maybe like 14, 15, who I think committed suicide, who was
Mm.
right next to Joe Shuster, and his family put his Xbox controller in there and like a report card and like random little trinkets from his life. And the Joe Shuster one, it's Joe Shuster and his wife, and they're next to each other, and the Joe Shuster urn is shaped like a bookshelf. So it's like a bunch of books lined up, and on the spines of the books it says Superman, GI Joe, Funny Man, Green Lantern, and like the various things that he worked on. And then his wife's one is it's a little cylindrical urn with a little plaque that says, this is uh, the inspiration for the intrepid girl reporter Lois Lane, wife of Joe Shuster, yada yada yada.
Mm.
And I just found it deeply moving. I found it very kind of there's a thing that I understand uh, that I did not understand when I was younger. I never really got why I didn't really understand why cemeteries existed. I didn't really understand why people wanted to be buried. It was very foreign to me. I was like, you want to be put in the ground? It's so weird. Like who this is strange.
Right.
And then as I've gotten a little bit older and I've gone to cemeteries literally all over the world, I went to go visit um, Mobius's grave in Montparnasse Cemetery in France, and um, it's something of a fascination of mine now is visiting cemeteries, and I really do understand that it's not for them; it's for us. It's for all of us who are left wanting. We have love left to give, and that's a way of us communing with the great beyond. And so it's
Yep.
really being buried as a kindness for the living, not a egocentric thing for the deceased. And the idea of being cemented back in the earth, I think, is an existential, spiritual thing that a lot of people like, and it feels kind of like, the circle is fulfilled. But in this columbarium that Joe Shuster is interred in, it's so fascinating because you're giving a little stage for someone's family to present a curated version of who they are, and you're able to see into these little pinholes into a universe that are unobservable. Like there's another person there who is like obviously someone who struggled with depression, and they had this little like sheet that somebody had torn out of a notebook that had like a goodbye letter written on it. And it wasn't even like a suicide letter. It was just like a, hey, I'll see you when I see you, and it was this kind of like beautiful little constellation of regret, just like in this little box. And it was deeply moving. I don't know why I'm talking about cemeteries now, but yeah.
No, that's some powerful stuff. That it sounds like you're getting some good resources for another book coming out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of this book, really. Like
Yeah.
all of this is in there, but maybe there is another book. It's just still called like Cemeteries or something, and it's just me going to cemeteries and being like, "Look at all these dead folks. This is crazy."
So you're talking about the books that you worked with Nicole on. Those books are going to be like F Off Squad, like we mentioned, Forest Hills Bootleg Society, Everyone is Tulip,
Mm-hmm.
and those are basically. And then you have some other F Off Squad stories, but those are the ones basically you've done with Nicole, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Those are the things that Nicole and I have made together.
yeah.
Yeah, we've made we've made too many books, honestly. Kind of need to not have so many books. I just did a show in Chicago. I did a convention in Chicago, and my God, Barney, do you ever go to
Yeah.
shows? You ever go to conventions?
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you ever go with 4 suitcases filled with like 200 pounds of books? I don't recommend it. It's not fun.
No.
It's so physically difficult. And you sound like you sound like such a baby complaining about it to people too, because they're just like, yeah, but you're choosing to do this, and I'm like, I know.
So Dave, if people want to follow you and learn more about you, where's the best place they could go to?
You can find me at heydavebaker.com, or on all the socials at xdavebakerx. Instagram and TikTok are where I mostly post. Um,
Okay.
yeah, lots of videos of me talking about comics or doing the thing.
Right. Excellent. Cool. Well, Dave, you're gonna have to come back on again. I always have a genuine pleasure chatting with you, and you got to come on more often. It's 3 times. Yeah. So yeah,
I gotta go for 10.
I know. See, yeah, we'll just have your own segment on the show. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just me like lecturing people about cemeteries. It's just like, yeah,
Excellent.
so I went to fucking. Oh no! Oh, we're so close. We're so close to the end.
No, to be fair, you swore like at least like a half a dozen times. So I'm just
Oh
gonna,
my God,
you know,
what? When did I
yeah, yeah,
swear?
yeah, you did. You said the sh word a few times.
Oh,
You
that's
said
not
damn.
swearing. Ah, Barney.
You know what? I'm just gonna put like uh just like a thing at the beginning of the show just to let people know. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna edit this out. That's a lot. But no,
Oh
you're
man,
good,
I was
man.
like purposefully not swearing. Ah, this is the same thing that happened last time.
I know. See, you're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. All right. But listen, yeah, come back on, man. I always enjoy talking to you. So
Yeah, me too, dude. I'm so sorry. Apparently, I'm just like physically incapable of it, man. I don't even know what's happening. Did I just say the sh word, or were there other words as well?
oh, you said yeah, no, there was a lot more. No,
Gosh,
there's a yeah, yeah.
what?
So yeah, there was a lot.
I feel like you're gaslighting me now for comedic effect. I feel like we're
No,
gonna get off, and you're gonna be like, "Ah, no, I'm just messing with
you'll
you."
watch the show. You'll watch it. You'll see it. It's like
Ah.
Oh, you're
Well,
good.
I'm
Don't
sorry
worry
to make
about
your
it,
life
man.
harder, man.
No, you're fine.
I'm not doing this as a bit. Like, I really was trying to not.
And